Everybody, good morning or hello or good evening whenever you are watching this. I'm going to say a special hello to every one of you. Okay, let's go. So, hello Aquila, hello Keaton, hello Gabe, good morning Xavier, hi Karen Lily, how you doing Jimmy, how's it going George, how are you Mesa, how are you Tiana? How are you feeling, Sasha Lee? How's it going, Daryl? How are you, Cameron? Nice to see you, Daniel. How are you feeling, Elizabeth? Lovely to see you, Jared. And how are you, Louisa? I got everybody. I am going to read you a story again today. It's the morning. There's lots of birds outside my apartment. I hope you can hear some of them. It's very relaxing. That was a car. The author today is Julia Donaldson. The illustrator is Axel Scheffler. I'm wondering, can you think of what book it might be? It's not the Gruffalo. It's not Room on the Broom. I'm going to show you the back. Ready? I think I heard some guesses already. You guys are good. Yay! The Smartest Giant in Town by Julia Donaldson and illustrated by Axel Scheffler. And look! Do you remember why this is here? It's to remind us that Julia Donaldson wrote The Gruffalo. So I hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a lovely day. Bye-bye. The Smartest Giant in Town. Do you remember who the author is? Or the illustrator? Yeah, well done. Julia Donaldson is our author and... Yep, Axel Scheffler is the illustrator. The Smartest Giant in Town. The Smartest Giant in Town. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched-up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his stripy tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." My favorite picture in this is down here. Do you see the little duck? Hee. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. "It kept coming untucked anyway," he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. "Thank you," said the goat. George strode on singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother mouse. "It burned down, and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." You know what George does. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, as the mouse and her babies scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." Well, you guys know, what does he give the fox? Yes. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said, as the fox snuggled into it. It made a very fine sleeping bag. "Thank you," said the fox. George hopped on singing to himself, and this time I want you guys to join in. "My tie is a scarf for a cold, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a, my shoe is a house for a little white, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's this bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path." Do you remember what George gives the dog? Yes, he gives him his belt. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squashing my tummy anyway," he said, as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. "Thank you," said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on singing to himself. And do you see what's happened to George now he gave his belt away? Uh-oh. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but my trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town." Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, "I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes," he decided. He turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. And he can only hop because he gave away a shoe and a sock. But when he got there, it was closed. How is George feeling? Yeah, he's pretty sad. "Oh no!" cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. "My gown!" he yelled. "My dear old gown and sandals." George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the coziest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home along the road. Outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said. "Open it." George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside it said, okay, I want you guys to join along with me for this one. I'll say it too. "Your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town." For Lola, Julia Donaldson.